Welcome back to Movies Recap. Today I will show you an American social science fiction thriller, from 2017, titled The Thinning. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and enjoy. New World Order is passed to reduce overpopulation. The United Nations has mandated all nations reduce their populations by 5% each year. The United States of America implements its population control measure in 10 to 241. A standardized test for all students grades 1 through 12. Those who pass the test proceed to the next grade or graduate, while those who fail are euthanized. In Austin, Texas, 18 hours before the thinning, Lena Michaels is helping Simon study in preparation for the exam. However, Simon doesn't seem to understand the concept of the product rule, claiming that he is too tired to grasp it before the exam. As an alternative, Simon offers Lena money in exchange for lenses which will solve the questions on the thinning test for him. Lena is reluctant at first, but she needs the money to pay for her sick mother's treatments. She receives a call from the hospital that her mother wants to be discharged, having refused the advice from the doctors to be under their care. Lena rushes to the hospital in the company of her siblings and bumps onto her mother, who was already checking out. The doctor breaks the news to Lena that the medication is not working and her mother's condition is getting worse. He asks her to take her mother home and keep her comfortable for days she is left with on Earth. At the governor's mansion, we are introduced to Blake Redding, son of the Texas governor, Dean Redding, who lives a high life. Blake sneaks out to meet his wild girlfriend Ellie one last time before the thinning. They sneak off to a hilltop pool and jumps in for a swim. Hours later, while they are kissing in the car, a flashlight is shown on them, held by one of the governor's agents. Blake is taken back home and given a lecture by his father for sneaking out on the eve of the exams. Early the next morning, students are on their way to the thinning exam. Simon, who is already wearing the lenses he got from Lena, is bumped and the lens falls out. While trying to search for them on the floor, the guard commands him to move along and he is ushered into the building without the lenses. Blake meets Lena at the entrance and asks if he can buy one of her study guides. She informs him that she already sold the last piece to Simon. Lena then meets up with her friend Kellen, whose father is a teacher at their high school. Kellen frequently logs into his dad's account to gain access to the school's security cameras. He confesses his love for Lena, his best friend, but she brushes him off. While in the queue, one of the students is caught trying to sneak into the exam room with notes scanned in his arms and is quickly rounded up by the guards. Kellen hacks into this dad's account and gains access to the footage and sends it to Wendy Banks, a prominent news reporter in Austin. Blake meets Ellie in the locker room and he tries to comfort her. Lockdown is commenced and testing begins with a word of encouragement from their teacher. The students are informed of the rules of the test and that their grades are final. 2 hours later, the results are announced and Ellie Harper turns out to be one of the students who failed the exam and is taken to the thinning. Blake calls his father to try and free Ellie, but he refuses, claiming that no one is above the law and nothing can be done. Lena's relief is cut short when she discovers that Simon, who lost his contact lens on his way to school, had failed. Blake causes a diversion by knocking out the guards and screams at Ellie to run, but she is blocked by students in the hallway and is recaptured. Ellie is executed in the thinning. A year later, we are introduced to Wade, practicing football on the pitch, and impressively passes the ball. As the final exam approaches, another student is seen practicing mathematics, but she is frustrated as she can't grasp the content. She opts to offer herself to Mr. Glass, who in turn will help her pass the exam. Ms. Birch spots the girl leaving Mr. Glass's car. Lena's mother has died and she has become the only caretaker for her young siblings. She tutors her sister Corinne, who is now in the first grade and will be undergoing her first thinning. Blake has become cold and distant towards his father since Ellie's death. On the day of the thinning, he records a video and places it in an envelope. Lena escorts her sister Corinne to the exam and asks her random questions to see if she is well prepared for the exam. She answers all the questions correctly. Blake drops the envelope in the mailbox while heading to school, but one of his father's agents intercepts the package. Kellen meets with Lena at the entrance of the school, explaining how tense he was as they head to the exam room. He flatters Lena, claiming she is a genius who doesn't have to worry about exams. The agent delivers the video to Dean and he finds out that it is a suicide note. Blake plans to intentionally flunk the test and allow himself to die to send a message to his father, who plans to announce his candidacy for presidency. While everyone is settling in for the exam, we are introduced to the children undergoing their first test. Miss Cole plays a video about planet Earth, explaining how global warming made it uninhabitable and that the measure of keeping only the smart one was implemented for survival. She gets emotional as the kids watch the video and leaves the room for fresh air. After going through the suicide video from Blake, Dean, angered by his son's decision, calls the head proctor of his son's high school's thinning Mason King, and instructs him to alter the test results so his son would pass. During the exam, Nathan calls for help from Miss Cole. He doesn't know the answer to one of the questions. She tries to help only to realize the guard is staring at her. She informs Nathan she can't help him, and that he should do his best. Once the exams are over, Mason is seen altering the test results to ensure that Blake passes. The results are announced and several students including Nathan fails the exam. Another student, Sarah Foster, who had sex with her teacher, also fails the exams as she is betrayed to hide what Mr. Glass did. Blake is shocked to find that he had passed, despite his intentionally trying to fail the test. Equally shocked is Lena, who has failed, and her teacher. Mason calls the governor and informs him the transfers were a success and Blake is safe and that the thinning will be commenced. Before Lena is taken away, Miss Kendra intercepts and informs the guard that there must be a mistake or her tablet must have had a problem. She claims Lena is the best student she ever had and it is not practical that she failed the exam. The guard calls the grading center and he is informed that the results are correct and they should proceed to the thinning. When her intervention does not help, Miss Kendra slips her keycard into Lena's hand and informs her to escape. The students who pass the exam are directed to the recreation room to celebrate, but Blake is disturbed and confused. Miss Kendra witnesses Mr. Glass luring another girl to have sex with him. The governor holds a Congress meeting in Texas and explains how he innovated the thinning scheme in his state to reduce overpopulation. He also announces his candidacy for the presidential election. Lena and the other students who failed the test are escorted to the thinning. She hides the keycard in her mouth as they are asked to undress for decontamination. Blake, in desperation, sneaks into Mason's office to pull the test scores, but his efforts are rebuffed by the need for a password. As a Hail Mary, he pulls several cords from a fuse box, causing power in the school to go out and forcing the facility into lockdown. Mason finds one of the guards unconscious in the washroom. Lena and the rest of the students in the death chamber uncuff themselves and a fight erupts. Lena takes advantage of the situation and using Ms. Cole's keycard she escapes and runs. The rest of the students are rearrested and handcuffed. Students at the recreation room start complaining that they are being held in the facility unwillingly. Mason commands the guard to take count of the recaptured students, only to find out one is missing, Lena Michaels. He commands that all teachers be taken to the holding room A. Blake runs into Lena while she was fighting a guard. They manage to knock him out and he is shocked that Lena failed the exam. He informs Lena that he purposely failed the exam to test his dad's word that he is not above the law. Together, they agree that something is not right and plan to discover what happened that caused Blake to pass. They explore through the vents to avoid the guards. The two stop at a junction and Lena says she needs to find out where they keep the tests. Blake confronts her asking if she wants to steal the answers for next year for her small side hustle. Blake, who thinks that she only does so to buy herself luxurious stuff, is shocked to find out she hustles to help pay for her mother's treatment. He apologizes and Lena confesses her love for him. They head towards the server room. During the interview, the governor is asked about the ongoing lockdown in Vista Point High School despite the test being completed hours ago, and that no parents have been notified of the outcome of the test. The governor, not being aware of the situation, informs the interviewer that he doesn't have immediate details of the incident but he will follow up. We are taken back to the testing facility where Mason, who is checking the teacher's key card and IDs, approaches Miss Kendra and she hesitates to produce them. By luck, Mason receives a call from the governor demanding to get an update on how the situation at the school is being handled. Mason informs the governor that Lena is missing and that they will find her. Meanwhile, as the two maneuver through the vents, it breaks, and Blake falls into a swimming pool unconscious. Lena jumps into the pool and performs a CPR on him, and they head to the exchange room to change their clothes. The students at the recreation room become more aggregated and demand to leave. One of the guard beats up the students and Kellen records the whole scenario and sends it to Wendy Banks. Back at the vents, Lena's keycard falls to the hallway filled with guards. Desperate to retrieve the keycard, they head to another room to find tools to help them pick the card. The guard hears the commotion in the room and Blake subdues him to disguise himself and heads to the thinning, while Lena makes her way to the server room. A beat-up guard is confronted by Mason for having been beaten by a girl, but he confesses she was in the company of a male student, and that the girl disguised herself as Miss Kendra. At the holding room, Kendra seduces Mr. Glass and asks him for a date later in the evening. In the process, she hugs him and steals his keycard. Mason discovers that Mr. Glass doesn't have his keycard and he is handcuffed and beaten up to say its whereabouts. Lena, with the help of a tech-savvy friend Kellen, gains access to the school's servers. She first checks her sister's results and she is relieved to find out she passed. To her horror, she discovers that, despite having a score of 98%, she was listed as having failed the test while Blake passed with a score of 15%. Several other students had also been falsely registered as having passed or failed despite their test scores. In addition, during last year's test, Blake's girlfriend Ellie had a score of around 80%, but was listed as having failed. Lena receives the breaking news that she had attacked, injured and killed 2 guards at the school, and students will be released from the facility once she is apprehended. The video footage of students being assaulted lands to the press and is published immediately. Lena, having seen the report about the footage, recalls it must be Kellen's doings and quickly shares the images of the results sheet with him. Unfortunately, the power in the school is restored, and Lena is caught on camera hacking into the computer. She is apprehended by Mason as Blake is also captured in a failed attempt to rescue the other students in the death chamber. Kellen receives the message from Lena containing the score sheets that were altered. He then forwards the results sheets to Wendy. With the news now reporting on his corruption and jeopardizing his candidacy, Dean Redding has no choice but to review the results and execute all those who failed. It is reported that Lena Michaels had the highest scores but she failed, whereas Blake had the lowest score but he passed. The governor orders Mason King to halt the thinning and revise the scores. Lena, along with the other students who had passed the test, are released. She kisses Blake as she heads out of the death chamber. Unfortunately, as per Dean's instructions, the students who failed the test are to be put to death, including Blake, his son, and Wade Freeman. As the students who passed the exams are reunited with their families, Lena is reunited with Corinne as Dean holds a press conference where he pins the blame of his manipulation of the thinning on Mason and contemplates the death of his son. Little does Dean know, Blake isn't dead. The lethal injection he and the other failing students received was a sedative. They are taken to a secret underground facility responsible for making the tablets that the thinning test is conducted on, with Blake discovering that other failed students, including Ellie, are not killed but instead used as slave labor. Please like and subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notifications about new movie recaps.